Welcome to the latest in the series of PPMA webinars. I'm Gordon McFarlane, PPMA President and also Assistant Director for Corporate Services at Leicestershire County Council. I think my jobs are in that order at the moment, actually. This is a really interesting one. I'm stitching my colleagues up here. This will be a really interesting discussion, I think. Cost of living. We're all looking at what we can do as organisations to support our workforce, and that's, you know, particularly in the short term. But the longer term planning is just as important, if not more important, than the short term. And I think part of the presentation will be how to think long term in the face of short-term adversity. And I'm having similar conversations trying to encourage our services to think about workforce and succession planning. Almost impossible when we're focusing on that, yeah, but I can't deliver this service today. So we've got 30 minutes for a session. So because we've got fairly small numbers, I think we can be a little bit more informal. But if we start off by putting any questions or comments in the chat, and then once the presentation's finished, we'll pick those up and go through those, and you can ask any other questions that you like. So just want to introduce colleagues from AVC Wise who will be delivering the presentation. So we've got Tim McEwen, Jonathan Kempson, and in the background, controlling everything, Alicia Atherton. So welcome all, and I'll hand over to you.
Gordon, thank you. Much appreciated. Good afternoon all. As Gordon has just mentioned, my name is Tim McEwen. I am from AVC Wise, and I've been tasked today with explaining how shared cost AVCs can empower the financial well-being of your employees. Now, I've worked with LGPS and AVCs for over 20 years. I am unapologetic about my passion for this unique opportunity that can benefit the majority of your workforce. I've been joined, as Gordon said, by my colleague Jonathan, who has even more years experience, who will help answer some questions at the end. Okay, so who are AVC Wise, I hear you ask? We were formed back in 2018 by PS Tax, our parent company, who many of you will have worked with in the past. We are experts in salary sacrifice and tax, and have created a fully managed, fully compliant shared cost AVC scheme. The most effective way of having your existing AVC set up is via a salary sacrifice shared cost AVC. Quite a mouthful. I will try to call it a shared cost AVC for the rest of this afternoon. We are now partnered with, I'll update that for you live, it's probably 170 partners now, just over. Many of them are also PPMA partners, and some of those are listed on screen for you. I'll give you a minute to take in some of the names there so you know who to talk about me after today is finished. Why do we do what we do at AVC Wise? Our mission at AVC Wise is simple, to inform as many people as possible about this unique benefit. We'd like to ensure that all employers at least offer shared cost AVCs to their LGPS members. We want to ensure that all LGPS members have access to this potentially life-changing benefit. We want to empower employees to make their money work harder for them at a time when it means most. Gordon had alluded to that earlier. And in doing so, we also will add additional savings for you as an organization. All this at a time when financial well-being has never been so important. Your workforce are facing many financial challenges: post-COVID recovery, inflation, energy prices, a cost of living crisis. Your workforce need that extra support to secure their future financial well-being. So why aren't you doing shared cost AVCs? For those of you who aren't, you're likely aware that legislation has allowed for salary sacrifice shared cost AVCs for a number of years. That's over 5 years now. And indeed, the LGA even went to the lengths of issuing a bulletin on the popularity of shared cost AVCs in August last year. However, for me personally, more important than the legislation More important than the regulations that allow it, more important than any LGA bulletins, is I believe it's the right thing to do. As a caring employer and as people managers, as I talk to PPMA, you'll want to enable more of your colleagues to access this benefit and save for their future. Tax relief and potentially national insurance relief on the way in, and of course, potentially tax-free cash on the way out. In today's world, where we talk about reward and recognition, we talk about recruitment, we talk about retaining staff, I believe that this is a message we should be shouting from the rooftops. But education is key, educating staff on how this all works. AVC Wise's fully managed solution can help you reach more of your workforce with our ongoing digital employee communications and free webinars covering a range of subjects. And we'll have more on those webinars and the services available in a minute or two. Before I do that, I want to take you through just how this works in practice for any of you who don't know. So by way of an example, I will introduce you to Joe. Joe is a member of the local government pension scheme. He earns £30,000, £2,500 a month, which makes him a basic rate taxpayer. Now, Joe pays his local government pension scheme contribution. He pays income tax, he pays national insurance, and he has take-home pay of £1,857. If we move on then, if Joe has a standard AVC, which is what many of you will have today, he elects to pay £250 into this AVC for the simple reason that it's a very tax efficient way of saving money for his retirement. That £250 is taken from his salary before tax. It reduces his tax bill by £50, you can see in the center of your screen, to £208. And that has the impact of reducing Joe's take-home pay by £200. So he's effectively paid £200 and his AVC is worth £250. That's how it works today. If you're one of those employers who have moved forward with a shared cost AVC, this is how it will work. Now, I'll point out to you, first of all, that the £250 AVC contribution is unchanged. That still goes to the AVC providers. What has changed, however, is how the contribution is broken down. It's on a shared cost basis. To explain that a little for you, the employee cost will become £1. So you can see Joe's contribution has changed from £250 to £1. His employer will effectively pick up the rest of that cost. I can see Gordon squirming in his chair. No, Gordon, that does not mean you will pay £250 or £49 for your staff, because what you'll ask the employee to do is sacrifice that same amount from his top line salary. So it doesn't cost the employer anything. Ultimately, £250 is going to the provider. Joe has sacrificed £249 from his top line salary. Now, I'll pause for a second here because I'll answer a question that I know is coming. Well, hold on, Tim. If I reduce my salary through salary sacrifice, is that not going to have an impact on my local government pension? Simple answer to that is no, it does not. And you can see on screen that Joe's LGPS contribution is unchanged. It's £162.50. He is paying the same to get the same out. Okay, and that's because it's based on notional salary. What has changed, however, the eagle-eyed amongst you will note that the amount of national insurance that Joe has paid has changed. That is because his national insurance is calculated on the post-sacrifice salary, the 2251. So it has been reduced to £189.21. Ultimately, Joe's £250 AVC, which used to cost him £200, because his employer has been proactive in setting up a share cost AVC, that only now costs Joe £167.01. That's an extra saving of, forgive me for the penny, an extra saving of £33. So Joe is better off because of this decision. Now, I'll be so bold as to suggest today that by not having this set up, potentially your existing AVC payers are potentially being financially disadvantaged. Okay, now, just to reiterate the fact that the £250 in this example still goes to your AVC provider. There is no change. AVC Wise are not an AVC provider, so there is no change there whatsoever. Now, Jonathan, I'm going to look at you here. I would normally stop at this point for questions. I don't know if any have come in. Shall I just continue on?
I think if you just continue on at the moment.
Okay.
And
okay, so now hopefully that brings the shared cost AVC into light. So now, why would you choose AVC Wise as your partner? As mentioned, we will help support your employees with their financial well-being. We will help make things easy for you to implement with minimal resources required. We will make the scheme fully compliant with HMRC, GDPR, etc. And ultimately, we will save you all money, employers and employees alike. We will work with all the AVC providers and offer a full range of communications, including a variety of webinars and individual meetings for all staff. Those webinars may be as simple as understanding the main scheme. Very important that staff understand how valuable the LGPS pension is in a cost of living crisis. The webinars also include sessions for the over 50s, so they can understand the great savings opportunities that AVCs afford those closer to retirement. As mentioned, the scheme is low maintenance for your payroll teams, and you will get employer and employee support through our fully managed solution. I'll give you a flavour of what the fully managed solution gives to you. Our fully managed solution makes it easy for you to launch the scheme. You'll receive ongoing support with compliance and communications. Ultimately, make the scheme, a great success. Importantly, we'll provide your members with customer service, the ability to speak to a pensions expert on the phone or by live chat. And that is something I'm sure, Gordon, you'll testify to that your organization hasn't had in many a year. Ultimately, we will make it easy. We will make it compliant. We will make it a success. But you would expect me to say that. So let's look at some figures and some comments from what our partners have had to say. On screen, you can see PPMA member, Kirklees Council. I think the figures speak for themselves, but I'll talk you through them. In 2 years, from June 2020 to June 2022, participation was up 178%. Salary sacrifice was up over 200%, and over £700,000 in employer savings since June 2020, pardon me. Again, I think they do speak for themselves, but I don't take my word for it. Talk to Kirklees. I'm sure David Blackburn would love to hear from you. Okay, another couple of comments and partner feedback. Now I'll pause for a second myself and just let you read some of the comments there from Lisa at Woking and Yvonne Moult from Blackpool. Okay, so many of the organisations have already recognised the unique savings and have had great things to say. Great feedback on the webinars that you'll pick out there, including that LGPS webinar that I mentioned earlier. And I think it's very important today, just to reiterate, in a cost of living crisis, my concern would be that your LGPS members look upon their pension as just being another bill. And might be tempted to come out of that scheme, maybe to go to the 50-50 option that we all know about. So that is a real concern. Okay, now cost for AVC Wise, because I'm sure you'll all want to know. In simple terms, the cost is 4.5%. So it's 4.5% of the total salary sacrifice. And of course, this is only after the national insurance saving you make as an organization. Currently around and about 11%, but of course we know national insurance is going to change again. Jonathan, I'll let you talk about that in a moment or two. But just on cost, please note, there is no upfront cost. There's no upfront cost to partner with AVC Wise. Okay. Gordon, that's probably well enough for me, I think, from this morning or for this morning. My details are on screen. Should any of your partnering organizations want to reach out to me to arrange a chat from an organizational point of view, Jonathan's details are there as well. Maybe for any of our partnering organizations, if you want to set up some webinars, Jonathan and his team would love to do that for you. But we'll maybe pause for a second and just see if we have had any questions.
Okay. I've got no questions in the chat, but just to, and perhaps colleagues who are on the call, feel free to come in, but just a couple of bits from me. I mean, I think this is really good, and there's a number of compelling arguments. I think that the bit that was missing for me was just going back to cost of living, and I accept there's something different for over 50s, people who are on their way to retirement, where the financial situation is potentially different. But the reality at the moment of us jointly marketing and saying to people, lock money away, when people are struggling to pay bills, they're juggling, etc. And it's kind of, it's how we're credible around that, the short term versus the long term. And I don't know if there's any sort of observations from your perspective on that.
I don't know if there's an exact answer, Gordon.
No, I don't think there is.
I think there's a couple of threads to that, I suppose. One which I touched on, which is just about getting people to understand the local government pension scheme. And again, I mentioned my fear there for people coming out of the scheme. So even for your staff or anybody's staff to understand the LGPS pension, you'll get that for free by partnering with AVC Wise. So that's one thing I would say. The second thing I would say, actually, Gordon, in answer to that, is I don't think we're not necessarily going to promote people or tell people to pay into an AVC. I've worked with AVCs for 20 years, and I don't think I've ever told someone to pay an AVC. But I did say, as part of my slides there, that education is key. So it's about getting people to understand it. It's about getting people to understand that putting money away, something small now, could make a big difference in retirement. Could that be what gets me out early, for want of a better phrase? Again, I mentioned the people closer to retirement. I mean, how many of your staff who are going to retire in the next year, in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years, really understand that an AVC is probably for them quite simply the best savings account they will ever see? So it's about maybe getting them to understand those different threads. But certainly, I always say to people, Gordon, I've said it to you personally, the V in AVC is voluntary.
Absolutely.
So if we can get people to understand it, then it's.
And I think what you're starting to say is kind of, sorry, bring Jonathan in a second, but it's kind of segmenting the market, if you like. And us as employers, segmenting our workforce in a way without being judgmental about it.
Yeah, different messages for different people. I think with pensions is the only place where you get to be ageist. So there are different messages at different stages in life. Yeah. But I think just getting those messages to the workforce and letting them make an informed decision. I think that's what's important for me.
And if I can add to that, you're absolutely right. In these straitened times, I think it's even more important people are communicated with, because there's a lot of confusion. The mainstream media and it peddles a narrative, which is the hard reality is things are tough. Actually, sometimes by not taking action, you can actually make things worse, because the default action when markets, because let's be clear about this, an AVC is a pot of money, can go up, can go down. It's about informing people that there are still even cash funds available where you're not necessarily taking the investment risk, but can still reap huge tax savings. And particularly, we talked about segmentation. And the average AVC Wise customer often is sort of late 40s, early 50s if we averaged out the age. So, but the 50s are a very strong theme. And for those people, let's not underestimate that no one knows what any individual LGPS member's financial situation is. You as an employer do not know people's personal finances. And if we have members which, for example, have been prudent, built up some savings, potentially had an inheritance, whatever it is, and they are in a position whereby they don't need access to some funds until retirement, actually the risk of not doing anything and not doing things like shared cost ABCs, your risk is actually inflation. Although interest rates are going up at the moment, what you're actually seeing is your money withering away, and it's the silent killer on people's savings. Now, if people then are able to siphon off whatever is reasonably affordable, and this is important because the minimum contribution is as little as £2 a month. So even in straitened times, I would argue everyone can afford it to a certain extent, yeah. But it's that principle of knowing whatever that contribution is, if £100 is only going to cost you, well, currently 66 odd pounds out of your own pay, the uplift on your money, and this is so important, members need to understand, is over effectively 49% as a basic rate taxpayer. LGPS members who fall into the 40% bracket, again, really important to try and manage that liability. And you can do that through things like shared cost ABCs, which are effectively, this is the Rolls Royce of pension top-ups. Your yield is effectively, with the NI relief, currently over 70%. Yeah. And people, if they are in their 50s, closer to retirement, they're not locking up that money long to retirement. If they are in a position that they have some additional savings they can live on, you can't directly put money into these things, but what you can do is an increased contribution through your payslip and effectively live off those savings. And we know this from this hard evidence. Just to give you an idea about how successful shared cost ABCs are. We don't normally share this type of data, but I think it's very important everyone understands this, that we currently now handle from a position of 0 in 2018, when I joined AVC Wise, and prior to that, I was 20 years in Prudential's corporate pensions team. We are now in a position that we see a month, this is, by the way, a month, in excess of £5.3 million a month goes into shared cost ABCs. And even despite everything going on at the moment, we are on track to have our busiest ever month. And our average contribution is never been stronger, because people are now thinking about their own situation and how important it is to take the most tax efficient route to ultimately better their future self. And this is all about engagement. And as Tim was saying, educating members about it. Most people don't understand pensions. Most people don't even understand their pension statement. And when they start to look at these things, and they absolutely do that in their 50s, they should be doing it in their 40s and 30s. But by partnering with us as pension experts, we're not here to give financial advice, but the team I run has over 50 years experience of dealing with LGPS and ABCs, and we can put them in that informed decision. And given the flexibilities, despite what's going on at the moment, members can increase and decrease accordingly. But the most important thing is to do something. By not doing anything, I would argue employers and members are only jeopardizing their future financial health.
Thank you, Jonathan.
That's really helpful, because I think my question kind of started at an organizational level, and I think you're absolutely right to bring it down to individual circumstances and what people need to think about or what people not need to, because we're not forcing, picking up Tim's point.
Yeah, absolutely.
May wish to think about.
May wish to think about, absolutely.
Yeah. Gordon, just some anecdotal feedback for me even today. I've sat in on a understanding your pension statement webinar. For some of our partners, where we've asked the pension fund for the pension statement, and we'll just talk your members through what does this actually mean.
Yeah,
so something as simple as that.
Yeah, it is complex, and if you've been around a little while and the scheme has changed during your employment, etc., it is complex. Absolutely,
it's complex, but not the dark art that everyone thinks it is. So, Jonathan and I try to do our best to keep it simple. But
yeah.
Okay, Gordon. Anything else from yourself or the wider audience there?
I don't think so, and I don't want to put Shona or Jacqueline on the spot. But if there's anything that you want to ask, we've got a couple of minutes. And just actually, Jacqueline.
Hello, hi, sorry. No, very interesting. I guess I'm one of those people. I'm actually approaching 60, and I'm sort of obviously I don't really know, or not really got so deeply involved with understanding pensions, but there's a concern about what I need to do for myself, and obviously to help and encourage others within my workforce as well.
I will speak for Jonathan here, Jacqueline. I'm sure if you take his email address down off screen, he will respond to you, and you two of you can have a chat, honestly.
Thank you.
I think it's whatever age a member is, it's never too late. We've had some people who've even paid into these things for a matter of months because they realise, well, this is an opportunity for me to save both tax and national insurance. And then, and the unique thing is, if you take it at the same time as your main scheme, then within limits, you get it all back as tax-free cash. So for some people, it becomes the best thing since sliced bread. But it's about understanding what that means on an individual level for yourself, Jacqueline, and for any of your other colleagues. And what we have is a whole range of tools and calculators. But the thing is, the great thing is, our partners who we work with, we have this ability to offer individual Microsoft Teams meetings with the member, ask them to bring their statement, and we can ask them when do they want to retire, what's their strategy, and take them on that journey, because pensions is a bit of a jungle, and the secret to all of this is to try and make it jargon free and digestible, but ultimately put people in a stronger place financially, because at the moment we're all under the ravages of inflation and things like that. So it's so important we try and help our future selves, and the sooner we do that, the better.
So Jonathan, Jacqueline will be in touch with you, I'm sure.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks. So thanks for that, Jacqueline. We're just approaching 12:30, so we should probably stop.
That's fine.
This has been recorded, so again, particularly Shona and Jacqueline, you'll say to your colleagues that this will be available for viewing after the event. And I just like to thank colleagues from AVC Wise for the presentation and the discussion. It's felt like a really useful discussion.
Thank you, Gordon.
The more we talk about this sort of stuff, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen,
Okay.
on behalf of AVC Wise, thanks for having us today, and I'm sure we'll speak again soon.
I'm sure we will.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Cheers,
Thank you.
colleagues. Thanks. Bye.